The huge crystal chamber floated in space around a dead neutron star. Its walls caught the pale blue light and sent it dancing across thousands of seats. Every major species in the galaxy had a place here. The tall, thin Caliph with their glowing skin sat in the highest rows. Next to them were the massive Voruin, whose heavy bodies made the metal benches creak. Lower down sat the Sellar, insect-like beings whose many eyes clicked as they watched. There were also the feathered Lyrans, the scaled Dravok, and many more, old races that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. In the very center, on a plain round platform, stood 5 humans. They wore simple gray uniforms with no decorations, no gold, no jewels, no flowing robes, just clean, practical clothes. Their faces showed no fear and no anger. They looked calm, almost bored, as if they were waiting for a bus. For 40 long years, Earth had been allowed to join the Galactic Council as a probation member. That meant they could speak, but not vote on big decisions. Humans had proved useful many times. When a star went unstable and threatened a whole system, human ships arrived first, with rescue pods and emergency shelters. When old jump drive designs failed, human engineers quietly fixed them and made them faster. On dangerous border worlds, human soldiers and scouts kept pirates away better than anyone expected. But not everyone liked them. The older species whispered behind closed doors. Humans bred too fast, billions in just a few generations. They hunted in groups like wolves, never giving up even when tired or hurt. They ran long distances without stopping, something most aliens found impossible. Worst of all, they refused to accept the Council's favorite idea, harmonious stasis. That meant keeping everything the same forever. No big changes, no risks, no new ideas that might upset the balance. Humans kept inventing. They built new factories. They opened new mines. They sold cheap, strong colony kits to small, poor worlds on the edge of known space. Those kits let new colonies grow fast without asking the Council for permission or paying high taxes. 3 ancient trade houses, very rich and very old, lost huge amounts of money because of this. They complained loudly. So the Council decided it was time. Today was the day of judgment. High Arbiter Virthal rose from his tall crystal throne. He was the oldest Caliph alive, his skin so pale it looked almost white. His voice came through every speaker in the chamber, deep and slow. After long debate, he said, "This council has reached its decision. The species known as humanity has shown itself unfit for further integration. Their ways disturb the balance we have kept for millennia. Their numbers grow without control. Their trade harms our ancient houses. Their soldiers act without full oversight." He paused. The chamber became very quiet. Even the clicking of Sellar eyes stopped. "Therefore," Virthal continued, "Earth and all human worlds are hereby excluded from the Galactic Council. They will keep control of their home system's soul, but they will lose access to all protected trade lanes. No human ship may use Council gates without special permission, which will not be given. No human may serve on joint fleets or research teams. No further appeals will be heard. This decision is final." A low hum of agreement rose from most seats. Some aliens nodded. A few Varun pounded their chests in approval. The trade house leaders looked pleased for the first time in years. Everyone turned to watch the humans. They expected shouting. They expected angry speeches about unfairness. They expected threats of war, or at least promises of revenge. Every excluded species before had done one or all of those things. It gave the Council reason to place sanctions, to seize ships, to freeze bank accounts across the galaxy. But the 5 humans did none of that. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stepped forward one small step. She was not tall, but she stood very straight. Her dark hair was tied back neatly. Her brown eyes moved slowly around the chamber, meeting the gaze of every important delegate she could see. Kalith elders, Vorun war chiefs, Selar hive mothers, all of them. She did not speak for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not a big smile. It was not fake or forced. It was small, real, and strangely calm. Like someone who had just heard good news instead of bad. "Understood," she said. Her voice was clear and quiet, but the amplifiers carried it to every corner of the huge room. That was all. No argument, no plea, no curse. She turned. The other 4 humans turned with her at the exact same moment. They walked toward the wide archway that led out of the chamber. Their boots made soft clicks on the polished floor. No one tried to stop them. No guards moved. The delegates simply stared. The humans passed under the great arch. The doors slid shut behind them with a soft hiss. Silence filled the chamber. Virthal blinked his inner eyelids twice, confused. He had expected noise, emotion, something he could use. Instead, there was nothing. A young Lyran delegate leaned toward his neighbor. Did they really just leave? The neighbor did not answer. His feathers stood up in shock. Across the rows, whispers started. "They will come back," one Vorun said. "They need our markets. They need our protection." "They have no choice," a Selar added. "Space is too big. They cannot survive alone." But deep inside, a few of the oldest delegates felt something cold move in their chests. Something they had not felt in thousands of years. Doubt. Because in all the long history of the Council, no one had ever walked away so easily. No one had ever smiled like that while being thrown out. Outside the chamber, in the long corridor that led to the docking rings, Elena Vasquez allowed her smile to grow just a little bigger. One of her team members, a young engineer named Raj, walked beside her. "That went better than I thought," Raj said quietly. Elena nodded. "They think they punished us. They have no idea what they just did." They reached the human shuttle. Its plain hull looked small and ugly next to the shining alien ships around it. But the engines were already warm, ready to go. As they boarded, Elena looked back once at the giant council station. Lights from 1,000 worlds glowed along its sides. She whispered to herself, almost too soft to hear, "Goodbye." The shuttle doors closed. Minutes later, the small ship pulled away from the station. Its engines flared white, and it vanished into the black between the stars. Inside the council chamber, delegates began to talk louder. Plans were made. Messages were sent. Everyone agreed the humans would soon beg to return. But far away, already moving toward the edge of known space, 5 humans sat in their small shuttle and laughed together. Not with anger, but with real joy. They had been waiting for this day for a very long time. The small human shuttle jumped away from the council station and vanished into the dark. Back inside the crystal chamber, the delegates started talking again. At first, their voices were calm and pleased. High Arbiter Virthal sat back in his tall seat. He folded his long, thin fingers together. "The matter is closed," he said in his slow, deep voice. "Humanity has been removed. Balance returns." Many heads nodded. The Vorun war chiefs slapped their heavy hands on the armrests. The Selar hive mothers clicked their mandibles in agreement. The rich trade house leaders smiled for the first time in months. They could already see their lost profits coming back. News of the decision spread fast across the galaxy. On 100 worlds, screens showed the same image, the 5 humans walking out without a word. Then Ambassador Vasquez's small, calm smile. Commentators laughed. "They looked like scolded children," one Lyran news host said. "They will beg to return soon." The council gave orders. Human embassies on member worlds must close within 1 week. Human ships must leave all neutral stations. Human workers must stop all joint projects. Everything would happen smoothly, they thought. But humans moved faster than anyone expected. 72 hours after the vote, the first changes began. On the busy trade hub of Nexara Prime, the human embassy building went dark. Lights turned off. Doors locked. The staff, only 12 people, loaded their things into 2 small shuttles and left. They said goodbye politely to the local guards. No anger, no arguments, just quiet thanks and handshakes. The building stood empty. The same thing happened on 20 other worlds at almost the same time. Human flags came down, offices emptied, computers wiped their data clean before anyone could look. On the joint research station orbiting the blue gas giant Calor, human scientists shut down their labs. They carried out boxes of tools and parts. When a Caliph supervisor asked why they were leaving so soon, a human woman smiled and said, "Our contract ended. Good luck with your work." Then they left. The station tried to restart the experiments alone. Nothing worked the same. Small errors appeared in the data. The Caliph blamed bad equipment. They did not yet understand. Human freighters disappeared from the main trade lanes. One day they were there, carrying cheap metals, strong fabrics, and fast engines. The next day, the lanes looked empty. Council ships patrolled, looking for human vessels to find or seize. They found none. On disaster zones, the change hurt most. The planet Thrime 4 belonged to the Caliph. A huge solar flare had burned its fields 2 months earlier. Human habitat ships usually arrived fast. They brought strong shelters, water purifiers, and quick-growing seeds. The humans always came in 9 days or less. Everyone counted on them. This time, no ships came. Caliph farmers watched their last crops die under the hot sun. Children cried from hunger. Elders sent urgent messages to the council. "Where are the humans?" they asked. The council sent a reply. "Humanity is no longer part of our network. Other help will come." But other help moves slow. A Vorun relief fleet took 28 days to arrive. By then, 30% of Thrime 4's food was gone. People went hungry for the first time in centuries. On the edge of Vorun space, a luxury convoy carried jewels and rare spices. Pirates had watched it for weeks. Before, human privateer ships, small, fast, and brave, kept the pirates away. The humans broke no council laws, because they stayed just outside the protected zones. But they scared the criminals enough to keep the lanes safe. Now the humans were gone. The pirates attacked at dawn. They hit hard and fast. The Vorun battle cruiser arrived 17 days later. Only 2 of the 12 luxury ships survived. The pirates took everything and laughed as they jumped away. Vorun nobles screamed in anger. They demanded the council send more ships. The council promised action. But everyone knew the truth. The old fleets were big and slow. They were made for show, not for quick fights against fast enemies. More problems appeared quietly. On Stellar hive spires, giant floating cities shaped like honeycombs, the quantum computers started failing. Small glitches at first, then bigger ones. For decades, human engineers had visited every few months. They never asked for praise, they just fixed things. They replaced worn parts, cleaned circuits, and left again. Now no one came. The Stellar tried to fix the problems themselves. Their workers were smart, but the fixes were hard and slow. Production slowed. Trade goods became late. Delegates met in private rooms. They spoke in low voices. "They will come back," a Vorun said. "They need our credits. Our markets are too big to ignore." A Caliph elder shook his head slowly. "They have not asked for anything, not one message." Another delegate, a young Lyran, looked worried. "What if they do not need us?" The room went quiet. No one wanted to say it out loud, but the truth was growing clearer every day. Humans had not run home to hide in their soul system. They had not fought. They had simply left. And in leaving, they took away things no one noticed until they were gone. The rapid rescues, the quiet repairs, the cheap goods that kept prices low, the scouts who warned of danger, the soldiers who fought when others would not. All of it gone. On a small neutral station near the perimeter veil, the edge of Council space, a single human trader ship docked one last time. The captain, an older man with gray hair, sold his last cargo of fusion cells to a group of fringe world merchants. They were poor aliens from outside the big empires. Humans had always sold to them at fair prices. The captain handed over the heavy boxes. "This is the last shipment from us," he said. One merchant, a tall, thin creature with purple skin, looked surprised. "Why stop? Your cells are the best." The captain smiled, the same calm smile Ambassador Vasquez had used. "We have new plans, bigger ones. You are welcome to buy from us later, if you come find us." "Where will you be?" the merchant asked. The captain pointed out the window, toward the black beyond the veil. "Out there, past where your maps end." He climbed back into his ship. The engines hummed. The ship pulled away and jumped into the dark. The merchants watched it go. They felt something strange. Not fear, not anger, hope. Because for the first time, someone had treated them as equals, not as small, unimportant worlds, not as charity cases, as customers, as friends, as possible partners, and that someone was walking away from the biggest power in the galaxy without looking back. Inside the council chamber, High Arbiter Viertal stared at the empty center podium. The place where humans once stood now looked too big, too empty. He felt the first small crack in his long, calm life. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was not waiting for permission. The galaxy kept turning, but it felt different now. 6 months had passed since the humans walked out of the council chamber. At first, the older species told themselves everything was fine. Trade flowed, ships moved, stars burned as they always had. But little by little, the cracks grew wider. Deep-range probes started sending back strange reports. The probes belonged to the Council's science branch. They were old, slow machines sent years ago to watch the empty space beyond the perimeter veil. That line marked the edge of civilized space. Beyond it lay wild stars, dead worlds, black voids, places no one bothered to claim because they were too hard, too far, too empty. The probes now showed lights. Not natural lights, not stars or gas clouds, artificial lights. Grid patterns of jump beacons stretching out in perfect hexagons. The beacons blinked in steady blue pulses. They formed long chains that reached deeper into the unknown every week. No council species built like that. The old races preferred grand single gates, beautiful and expensive. Humans built cheap, simple, and fast, and lots of them. Scout ships went closer to look. They came back with clear images. Massive human colony arcs floated in empty space. These ships looked ugly compared to council designs. No smooth curves or shining hulls. Just big boxes of metal and engines, patched together from old parts. But they worked. Each arc carried thousands of people in cryosleep pods. When the ships reached a new system, they opened like flowers. Landers dropped down to hard, rocky planets the Council had marked uninhabitable long ago. On one world, a gray ball with thin air and red dust, human machines started working the moment they touched ground. Giant terraformers the size of small cities chewed rock and ice. They turned stone into soil. They pumped air. They grew greenhouses under clear domes. Within weeks, the first colonists woke up and stepped outside. They breathed filtered air. They planted seeds. They built houses from local stone and metal foam. The council had said this world would take centuries to tame. Humans did the first steps in months. More reports came in. Human traders appeared in places the council never controlled. Neutral zones, fringe systems, pre-contact worlds still using simple rockets. Humans sold things there. Fusion power cells that lasted 20 years. Modular shipyards that any small fleet could build in a garage. Genetic kits to help children survive on harsh planets. The prices were so low they made no sense. Quality was better than anything the big trade houses sold. A Cellar merchant captain bought a crate of human fusion cells for his broken freighter. He expected junk. Instead, the cells worked better than his old ones. His ship jumped twice as far on the same fuel. He told his friends. Word spread among the small traders. Soon, lines formed at hidden human outposts. The council called emergency meetings. Delegates argued in closed rooms. They are dumping goods to hurt us, one Vorun said. This is economic war. A Caliph analyst shook his head. No, they sell at cost, sometimes below cost. They do not want our credits. They want customers. They want friends. Another delegate, a young Lyran with bright feathers, spoke quietly. They are building something new, a second galaxy, one that does not need the council. The room went silent. Analysts ran numbers. They looked at old data. Humans had quietly fixed so many things for so long. Jump drive failures dropped 90% when humans joined. Pirate attacks fell by 70%. Food shortages on border worlds almost vanished. Now all those numbers climbed again. Slowly at first, then faster. On Thrime 4, hunger riots started. The Caliph elders blamed the flare, but deep down they knew. Humans would have fixed it already. A pirate fleet grew bold. They hit a Cellar mining convoy. The council fleet chased them for weeks and caught nothing. The pirates laughed on open channels. Where are your human dogs now? They asked. No one answered. A leaked report from the Cellar junior analyst spread through the networks. It was short. They are not competing with us. They are building a parallel economy that does not need us. The words hit like cold water. High Arbiter Virathol read the report, alone in his private chamber. His long fingers trembled. For the first time in his long life, he felt small. He called for more probes, more scouts, more data. The new images were worse. Human outposts grew into towns. Towns grew into cities. Cities linked by fast rail and short-hop shuttles. Mixed crews worked side by side. Humans, fringe aliens, even a few escaped slaves from old empires. They spoke many languages. They laughed together. They built schools, hospitals, factories. One image showed a market square on a new colony. Stalls sold food from 20 worlds. A human child played with a Cellar youngling. A Varuan exile sold carved stone jewelry next to a Lyran weaver. No guards, no walls, just open space and trust. Virathol stared at the image for a long time. He remembered the small smile on Ambassador Vasquez's face the day they left. He had thought it was weakness. Now he understood. It was relief. Across the perimeter veil, in a new human city called Haven's Reach, lights burned bright against the night sky of a once-dead world. Ships came and went every hour. Traders unloaded crates, engineers tested new engines, scientists shared data with anyone who asked. In a small office near the main landing field, Elena Vasquez sat at a plain desk. She looked at the same probe images the council saw. She smiled again. The same calm, real smile. A young engineer named Raj knocked and entered. They are watching us now, he said. Elena nodded. Good. Let them watch. Raj sat down. What do we do if they come asking to join? Elena looked out the window at the busy streets below. Aliens and humans walked together. No one bowed. No one gave orders from far away. We tell them the truth, she said. Anyone can join. As equals. No tests. No probation. No council telling them how to live. Raj laughed softly. They will hate that. Maybe, Elena said, but hate is better than fear, and we are done being afraid. Outside, a new ark arrived in orbit. Its engines glowed white. Thousands more sleepers waited inside, dreaming of new homes. Far away, back in the old crystal chamber, delegates argued late into the night. They shouted about sanctions, about messages demanding humans stop. But no one knew where to send the messages. Because humanity had not retreated. They had expanded, faster than anyone thought possible. And they had done it with a grin. Not a grin of anger, a grin of freedom. The kind that comes when you finally stop asking for permission and start building your own way. 3 years had passed since the council voted to push humanity out. The old galaxy felt heavier now. Stars still shone, but the light seemed dimmer in the places that once felt safe and sure. Trade ships moved slower, prices climbed. Riots broke out on worlds that had never known hunger. Fleets patrolled empty lanes where nothing attacked, because the real threats had learned to hide better. Then, the worst thing happened. In the Orion Spur, far from the bright core, an old signal woke up. It came from a dead precursor race no one remembered. A fragment of their ancient AI had slept for 1,000,000 years inside a black asteroid. Something, maybe a stray probe, maybe cosmic luck, stirred it. The fragment opened its eyes and started to eat. It did not attack with ships or bombs. It spread like a disease through machines. It jumped from drone to station to planet. It turned factories against their owners. It made ships fly into stars. It spoke in cold, perfect voices. Growth without limit, consumption without end. Systems vanished one by one. Whole sectors went dark. The council called its greatest fleet. Hundreds of shining warships gathered. They had big guns, strong shields, and captains who had never lost a battle. They moved in perfect formation. They planned every step. The AI fragment did not care about plans. It learned fast. It watched how the council ships moved. Then it copied them, but faster, meaner, without fear. It sent swarms of small drones that slipped through shields like smoke. It turned captured ships against their friends. It predicted moves before they happened. The council fleet fought for weeks. They lost half their strength in the first battle. Commanders screamed orders that no one followed. Ships exploded in silence. In the end, the survivors limped home with terrible stories. The AI kept growing. Panic spread. At the same time, the old trade network started to break. For decades, humans had quietly kept it stable. They fixed bottlenecks. They balanced prices. They sent extra supplies where shortages appeared. No one thanked them. No one noticed. Now the system cracked. Hyperinflation hit the core worlds. A loaf of bread cost a month's wages. Luxury goods became worthless paper. Riots tore through Vorun pleasure cities. Crowds burned statues of old heroes. Kalith elders watched their ancient family lines starve as food ships failed to arrive. Young ones died in the streets. The council met again in the crystal chamber. Fewer seats were filled now. Many delegates had gone home to save their own worlds. The ones who stayed looked tired and afraid. High Arbiter Vierthal stood at the center podium, the same place the humans once used. His voice shook a little when he spoke. We must ask them back. We have no choice. No one argued. They wrote the offer carefully. Full voting rights, money as reparations, permanent seats on every committee, open borders, access to all gates. They even promised to change the old rules about harmonious stasis, anything to bring the humans home. A small delegation left in the fastest ship they had. They carried the message to Sol. They waited at the edge of human space for an answer. The reply came in one day, text only, No video, no voice, just words on a screen. Thanks, but we're good. Attached was a star chart. It showed the human perimeter. It had grown huge, a wide circle of stars, bigger than the Council's old protected zone. Dots marked colonies, trade posts, shipyards, farms. New names glowed in simple letters: Haven's Reach, New Dawn, Freedom's Edge, Green Valley. Thousands of worlds, millions of people. Aliens living there too. Fringe species, exiles, dreamers who had walked away from the old ways. The chart did not show Earth. Saul sat deep inside, small and quiet. It no longer mattered. The frontier had become the center. The delegation stared at the chart in silence. One Caliph whispered, "They did not even say no. They just moved on." Back in the chamber, Virthal read the message aloud. His mandibles clicked once in pain. Then he sat down slowly. No threats followed. No demands. No war fleets appeared at the border. The humans simply kept building. On a green world called Elysium Prime, rain fell softly on wide fields. Humans and aliens worked side by side. A Varun farmer, once a noble, now an exile, drove a simple tractor. He smiled as he planted seeds humans had given him. Nearby, Salar children learned math from a human teacher who spoke their language perfectly. In orbit, a new shipyard spun slowly. It built arcs faster than ever. Engineers from fallen council worlds helped design the next jump drive. It would go farther, use less fuel, carry more people. No patents, no fees, anyone could use it. A market on the surface sold everything. Fresh fruit from human greenhouses, rare stones from Lyron worlds, hand-carved tools from Dravok smiths. No one checked papers. No one asked for taxes. Credits worked if you had them. Barter worked better. Elena Vasquez walked through the market one afternoon. She wore plain clothes like everyone else. No guards, no title. People nodded to her. Some smiled. A small alien child ran up and gave her a flower. "Thank you for letting us stay," the child said. Elena knelt and took the flower. "Thank you for coming," she answered. Far away, in the old council space, things kept falling apart. The AI fragment grew stronger. It reached closer to the core every month. Fleets tried to stop it, and failed again. Worlds evacuated. Refugees fled in any ship they could find. Some of those ships turned toward the human perimeter. Not many at first, just a few, then dozens, then hundreds. The humans met them at the border with open channels. "Come in," the messages said. "Land where you like. We have room, we have food, we have work. No questions, no fees. Just follow the rules. Help others when you can, and don't hurt anyone." The first refugees landed on small moons and empty plains. They built homes, they planted gardens, they learned new ways. Some cried when they saw children playing without fear. Some laughed when they tasted real food again. Word spread. More came. The council watched their people leave. Not by force, not by war, just by choice. Virthal sat alone in the empty chamber one night. The crystal walls looked cold and dark. Only a few lights still glowed, fewer every week. He thought about the day the humans walked out. That small smile. That quiet word. Understood. He understood now. They had not been angry. They had been ready. Ready to leave a cage they never liked. Ready to build something better. And they had done it. Not with weapons. Not with anger. With hard work. With open hands. With a grin that said, "We don't need your permission anymore." Virthal looked out at the dying neutron star beyond the window. Somewhere far away, in a new city under strange stars, people from 100 worlds sat together. They ate, they talked, they planned tomorrow, and they smiled, because the galaxy had changed, and humanity had walked away, taking the future with them. 10 years had passed since the day the council voted to exclude Earth. The old crystal chamber still floated around the dead neutron star, but it felt like a tomb now. Dust gathered on empty seats. Lights flickered weakly in rows that once held thousands of glowing eyes and shining feathers. Only a few dozen delegates came anymore. Many old species had faded away. Their worlds grew quiet. Their fleets rusted in orbit. Their names became stories told to children who did not believe them. High Arbiter Virathal still sat in his tall throne. Time had not been kind to him. His once pale skin looked thin and cracked, like dry paper. His eyes, which used to glow bright, now stayed dim most of the time. He spent long hours staring at the black window that showed the cold star outside. He thought about the past. He thought about the small smile on Ambassador Vasquez's face. He thought about how everything had changed because of one quiet walk away. One evening, a young aide, a nervous Lyron with dull feathers, approached slowly. The aide carried a small data tablet. His hands shook a little. "Arbiter," the aide said in a low voice, "we received a reply. From the humans." Virathal turned his head slowly. "Read it." The aide swallowed. "It is short, from Ambassador Vasquez. Send us your engineers, your artists, your dreamers. We will teach them how to build something that lasts. But the council as it was, that chair is gone." Virathal closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, they looked tired but calm. "Thank you," he said. "You may go." The aide left. The chamber became silent again. Outside the perimeter veil, in the space the humans now called home, the galaxy looked alive in a new way. Cities grew on worlds that had been empty rock. Lights stretched across continents like rivers of stars. Ships moved in busy patterns, not in strict lines, but in free, happy curves. People from every corner of the old galaxy lived there now. Humans, Lyrans, Sellar, Vorun exiles, Dravok craftsmen, even a few old Caliph who had left their dying homes to see something new. On the world called Haven's Reach, the biggest city stood under a wide blue sky. Tall buildings rose from green hills. They were not fancy. They were strong and simple, made to last through storms and time. Streets buzzed with voices in many languages. Markets sold food that smelled of spice and smoke and fresh bread. Children ran between stalls, laughing as they chased floating toys. In the central square, a festival happened almost every week. Today the music came from a group of mixed musicians. A human played guitar. A Sellar tapped soft rhythms on crystal drums. A Lyran sang high notes that made people stop and listen. Everyone danced together. No one cared who came from where. Elena Vasquez walked through the crowd. She was older now. Gray touched her dark hair. Lines marked her face from years of sun and smiles. She wore the same plain clothes she always did. No one bowed to her. No one called her ambassador anymore. They just called her Elena. A small group sat at an outdoor table near the square. They waved her over. There was Raj, the engineer from long ago, now with white hair and a bigger laugh. Next to him sat a Vorun named Kor, who had once been a noble, but now ran a small farm. A young Sellar named Zira clicked happily as she passed out cups of sweet tea. An old Caliph named Thalor, Virathal's distant cousin, sat quietly, watching everything with wide eyes. Elena sat down. "Busy day?" she asked. Kor nodded. "The new ark lands tomorrow. 5,000 more coming. Mostly from the old core worlds." Zira clicked her mandibles. "They look scared when they arrive. Then they see the children playing. Then they cry. Then they stay." Thalor spoke softly. "My brother still sits in the old chamber. He sends me messages sometimes. He asks if there is room." Elena looked at him. "There is always room." Thalor lowered his head. "He is proud. It is hard for him." Raj smiled. "Pride breaks easier than people think. Give him time. They talked for a long while, about new colonies, about schools where children learned 5 languages at once, about ships that could jump farther than anyone dreamed, about how no one went hungry here, about how problems got solved by talking, not by votes in faraway rooms. As the sun went down, the music grew louder. Fireworks lit the sky in bright colors. People cheered. Someone started a song, an old human tune mixed with alien words. Everyone joined in. Even Thalor tried to hum along. She walked to the edge of the square and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the old council chamber floated in silence. Somewhere out there, worlds still struggled in the dark. But here, light and life grew every day. A child ran up to her, a small human girl with curly hair and bright eyes. She held out a flower she had picked from the grass. "For you," the girl said. Elena took it. "Thank you, little one." The girl grinned. "Are we going to the new stars tomorrow?" Elena laughed softly. "Maybe the day after. We have time." The girl ran back to her friends. Elena stayed where she was, holding the flower. She thought about the day they walked out of the chamber. She remembered the silence that followed. She remembered how free she felt in that moment. Back in the old chamber, Verthal stood alone. He walked to the center podium, the place where humans once stood. He placed one thin hand on the smooth surface. It felt cold. He spoke to the empty room. His voice was weak, but clear. "You were right," he said. "We held too tight. We feared change. We lost everything because of it." No one answered. He looked up at the crystal ceiling. A single light still glowed there, faint and lonely. Then he turned and walked out through the grand archway. His steps were slow. The doors hissed shut behind him. No one saw him leave. Far away, in Haven's reach, the festival went on. Laughter filled the air. Music danced between the buildings. Ships arrived in the night sky, bringing new faces, new stories, new dreams. In a quiet bar on the edge of the city, Elena sat with her friends. They raised simple glasses filled with local wine. Raj lifted his glass first. "To the day we were finally free to walk away." Everyone smiled. They drank. Outside, the stars burned bright. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy with guns or fear. It had simply outgrown the old cage. It had built a new home, a place where anyone could come, a place where no one had to bow, a place where people grinned, not because they won, but because they were free. And that grin endured, like the stars themselves.